Good morning, everybody. I was really hoping that I didn't have to go first so I could copy what Khali and Elaine were going to say. But so I'm coming at this from a in-house perspective and sort of what is the effect of how are we using measurement more effectively, particularly in Asia, but in the communications realm. And greater power, greater responsibility always makes me think of Spider-Man. Young kid gets lots of very new cool powers, but what does he do with them? And how does he use them, and how does he harness all that energy? And I think right now that's where the communications field is, particularly as we think about measurement. Pandora's box has truly been opened. Social and digital media give us greater power than we have ever had, and we can be far more effective in proving to our businesses the value of what we do within communications. We know that I can tell you exactly who is going to see the content that I'm producing. I can tell you what they did with it. I can tell you how their ultimate behavior changed in the long term. And that's really that's an exciting new power. And it's something that gives us a far greater opportunity when we're going in with our businesses to ask for more money. I think Michael from AAP said this morning, greater power means greater money. That's what this is too, but there's much more pressure on communications professionals where we can prove this now. We're going to give you some more money. We're going to let you execute and prove, put your money where your mouth is. But then we actually have to do something with it. And I think it's a little bit uncomfortable for people. We're trying to figure out, well, how do we use these? How do we pick a social media channel and stick to it? Should we do that? What are the different techniques that we need to use? So one of the things that is very important, we'll just fly through this quickly, is that internal PR is just as important as your external PR. Companies, and particularly my clients within the business, they're not used to communications people talking to them like this. They aren't used to us talking in this way. They don't exactly understand what we're trying to do or how effective we can be in driving their business forward. So much for internal communications, and I'd say for PR agencies as well, it's all the companies here, is how are you telling your clients, how are you really proving to them that, this works, this is something that we should invest in over the long term? Because we are at the cutting edge. And again, referring to what was talked about in the session this morning, if you think about how are we using communications to drive things forward? How are we getting people to think a little bit differently about the work that we do and to prove the value that we can have? So I have 2 minutes left, but we'll use that for question time.
Fritz, it's Richard Bagnall from Prime Research.
Good morning.
Thank you for your presentation and your support. Great point, I think, about internal comms being important. Would you advocate that, would you like measurement reports that included evaluation of your internal comms and external comms in an integrated report or separate?
That's difficult. And I was just meeting with somebody a couple of weeks ago, an agency that is focusing particularly on internal communications program and evaluation. To be honest with you, it's not something that I've really thought of. Or if I've thought about it, is how do we put that into practice? A company like American Express, we've got an enormous internal communications function, which is headquartered out of New York, and they spend a lot of their time doing that. So to be honest with you, it's not something that I think a lot about or that I have thought a lot about. So let me think about that and get back to you a little bit later.
Good morning and hello everyone. I'm really happy to be here. And great introduction, Barry. I have only been with Philips for 2 years myself, so haven't had that long history with Philips, but I know a number of you here in the room do. So thank you for that. And what I do want to share with you today is the unique journey that Philips is going through right now. I think a lot of people know Philips as a consumer electronics company and a lighting company. Whenever I mention Philips to people that I work at Philips, they usually ask me, would you have a discount on TV or can you get me some light bulbs? I even had a taxi driver in Singapore once ask me if I could get him a karaoke set. And I didn't want to say that. That was actually one of our competitors in that audio space. But anyway, Philips is on an interesting journey right now as it goes through a business transformation. In 2005, Royal Philips decided to shift its focus into the growing healthcare technology industry. And that was the time when it announced it's diversifying the lighting business. So some of you might remember the news of the IPO of our lighting division, and where Royal Philips is right now, it is heading towards what we call healthcare technology industry. So I wanted to share with you today the measurements that Royal Philips team is using specifically to analyze our PR results and provide greater insights for our company internally especially. I think the question that came up earlier about the importance of internal communications, and especially for people who work in in-house corporate communications role, you know that you often have to answer questions from your senior management about the role of communications and what it means for the business and how important it is. So to that aspect, Philips then came up with a measurement system together with our agency partner, One Voice Connect, where we track more than 1,500 media titles across 16 regions globally. And these clips then go through a particular algorithm scoring system that gets us an overall score and quality for each of the clip that we get. So examples of what we measure, we track key messages, product and topics, the sentiment, positive, negative, neutral tonality, as well as spokespeople inclusion in our media stories. You hear me talk earlier about the shift that Royal Philips is going through. At the bottom on the slide there, what you see is what we call the Health Continuum. So because Philips is now heavily invested into the healthcare technology industry, we wanted to make sure that our PR work and external communications work focus extensively in allowing us to tell our news story and allowing us to build our brand in healthcare technology. And that's why we started to measure the health phases that are in the health continuum, and also different health spaces such as cardiology, oncology, fertility. Specific to Asia, ASEAN Pacific, the region that I work in, here's an example that I wanted to show you that comes through in the measurement report for us. A quick snapshot of what kinds of things that make news and what we consider as positive. We actually present this kind of report back to our management to let them know what we consider a success. And I think what's important here also is I personally have come across many a time, and I'm sure you have too, when the business tells you that I have to cut your funding, or that, why don't we just invest everything that we have in digital and social media? Why should we still continue doing PR? And I think that's when, specifically if you have a measurement system that allows you to track certain kinds of key messages and then looks at the results of the key campaigns that you drive in PR and external communications, and then allows you to then go to senior management to say, see, these kind of work actually are actually good for us and actually are measured against the kinds of things that we want to track, especially as the company is going through a business transformation. So I find that kind of conversations really useful, and this is when the measurements really help us drive that kind of conversations. All right, I think I have about 10 seconds left. And here is an example of the actual details of what we get in the report. As you can see, we measure message penetration, quality scores, and also sentiments here. And it's reflected in a way that I think your business people tend to be quite used to, as they're used to seeing bar charts and figures, and people who run the business and look at financial numbers all the time. I think you know that they love looking at such things. So it enables you to quantify to a certain extent what you do. Finally, I wanted to just share how, because we talked about measurement and the importance of measurement for our own use as PR professionals and for our use within the organization. But along with the business transformation that Royal Philips is going through, we've also started to develop what we call the Future Health Index, which is a global study that enables us to help drive the shift in brand perception amongst external audiences. So we started this last year. That was our first edition. And this year we're actually going to launch our second edition on Thursday. So it's timely. That's tomorrow afternoon we will launch the Future Health Index 2017, which is our second year in a row study. So as you can see here, it's a very key thought leadership platform for us, and it helps us then explain the move, the shift that the company is going through and the brand is going through, and then helps us also talk to our key stakeholders in the industry. So I will stop here right now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Elaine. So again, we're coming to the audience just for one warm-up question.
Albert Martirosyan, Ex Libris Media Research, Russia, Moscow. Thank you very much for your report. I just have one question. Have you ever tried to measure the impact of PR on your business results? Have you ever tried to correlate your PR KPI metrics with the business metrics or sales, lifetime value of consumers, etc.? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Yes, we thought about it a lot, and actually it's something that we often debate as a team as well. I think we all got to admit that there's only a certain extent you can directly correlate your PR results with sales leads or sales lead generation. We got to be honest with ourselves that there's only a certain extent that you can say that with positive PR results you lead to a certain perception change that could then increase awareness of what you do in the industry and then eventually help drive sales. But I would rather take up that honest conversation and help explain it to the business that it will help drive sales in the longer term, but not necessarily have a direct impact or an immediate impact on sales leads generation. So again, I always then have that conversation with our business leaders saying that we are part of a greater marketing mix. What we do in PR and communications is in addition to what you do in your CRM work and all the other things combined, and you still need PR as part of the entire marketing mix to eventually move the needle on brand perception and then to sales lead and generation. So
Okay.
I don't have a direct answer, but
Okay,
that's what we do.
thank you for that.
Thank you.
Hi everybody and welcome. Today I'm providing the perspective from the media intelligence and insights industry, and I hope to provide only 3 clear truths about what we see about the communications industry in Asia. The first, different maturity levels, seems so obvious. When we talk about insights in Asia, we're talking about a different maturity level from what we see in the UK and the US. But more importantly than that, we need to acknowledge different maturity levels within this region. As obvious as it may sound, it still remains a key challenge for many organisations in the region. On the one hand, we see our clients in North Asia, the digital-led companies that have leapfrogged more mature markets and have gone straight to reporting outcomes thanks to the rich data footprint available from e-commerce and social media platforms. What Fritz mentioned in your session, it does give us that direct link to outcomes, and it's very, very powerful, and with that comes great responsibility too. I find it interesting to step back and to compare the Australian market with I guess a market that has taken a relatively long time to take that journey from outputs to outcomes, and to compare that to the clients we work with in North Asia, who have only ever been able to track behavioural change and behavioural shifts, who have only ever really been able to link their activity, their marketing activity, through to sales because of the rich data and the footprint available from platforms such as WeChat, and Alibaba. So this is a new world, and it's so exciting, but they are actually in front of a lot of mature markets. On the other end of the scale, we do see some pockets, and most particularly in SEA markets, we do see an enduring obsession with outputs and many obstacles and challenges in the equation to getting measurement and evaluation right. I think when we look at where we're at in some of these pockets and working with some of our clients, it really takes strong leadership in every market. It takes local leadership and bespoke approaches in every market, using local languages to communicate the best practice. It takes acceptance of the differences of the media and political landscape and the history of each market we work with that we call Asia Pacific. The second truth we see from our perspective is about the scale and size of the growth of key markets such as China, and we find this scale truly head-spinning. As Duncan Clark, a Beijing-based tech consultant, commented in the Financial Times, and he was talking about the digital market, payment market in China, the future of money is being made in China right now. Clark also commented that when he left China, when he departed and got on the plane, he felt like he was going back in time, that when you leave China these days, you're actually going backwards. And that certainly resonated with me when I look at the work that we do in North Asia compared to our other markets. You do feel like you're going back in time because of the rich data and outcomes data that we've got access to. In China, we're talking here about a market of 1.37 billion people, a GDP of US $11.2 trillion. And in the digital world, by last year, 2016, there were 713 million Chinese people online, and 95% of these were accessing the internet via their smartphones. We're talking about a very savvy and a very digital market. In terms of the digital payment market, China has expanded to 50 times that of the US in the last few years. It is this scale, the pace of change and growth at the very intersection of commerce and communications that actually positions China as the real powerhouse of Asia, stepping beyond metrics to business insights that are at the very forefront of our industry. And in this sense, China plays the role of the disruptor in our industry. Definitely a disruptor for the way that traditional businesses like Isentia have grown. The traditional model is to start with a media intelligence, with a monitoring solution for clients, and to move up the value chain to try and upsell into insights, evaluation, and measurement. This doesn't resonate so well in most markets in Asia. They leapfrog the need for gathering the monitoring and data and really demand an insights-first approach, which is a challenge to the traditional companies. I've got to go back. The third truth I wanted to highlight today is about return on investment. AMEC launched the annual Business Insights Survey yesterday, and I've taken this slide out to actually show the enormous appetite for financial return on investment in this region. The AMEC survey showed that Asia Pacific clients ask for ROI 20% more than all other AMEC members. From our experience with our clients in Asia, business outcomes and ROI are definitely at the top of the shopping list, the measurement shopping list. It's so encouraging to see this, that the market embrace measurement and evaluation, but also to have a strong appetite for the powerful parts of the measurement equation. Where it can go wrong and where our biggest challenge is implementation. Our biggest challenge in this region remains what I call the ROI masquerade. By this I mean the metrics that parade as real ROI in the form of AVEs and PR multipliers or PR values. Cheap and easy to produce, flashy and sometimes impressive to those higher up, these metrics remain ingrained for some because they falsely look like they offer a quick and direct route to real business outcomes. It's a challenge for member companies like ours here, for AMEC and for the wider industry to continue to provide more compelling ways to measure and demonstrate success for our clients. The integrated framework has helped us in countless client conversations in this region, but still more needs to be done if we are going to end the charade. The next 2 days of discussion and debate are the best way we can continue the valuable education piece in the region. So thank you.
Thank you, Khali. And just a reminder, Khali spoke about the integrated framework, and there is a special session, a workshop session on that tomorrow. Sorry, you're quite right to stand there. We're coming to Marion McDonald on the front row, please, with a microphone.
Thank you, Khali. You talked about many markets in Asia being ahead of the Western world, if you like. Which do you think are the most advanced in terms of extracting insight from all of that data, and why?
We have specifically Isentia clients in Beijing, Shanghai and Hong Kong who I view as leading the pack. And it's a combination of the data that we provide, but the data that we purchase as well from the platforms that allows the analysts to work with a much richer data set. So when I compare the information that our Australian analysts have compared to our social analysts in Shanghai, it's so much more rich, and it actually places you in a better position to provide that insight because you're closer to business outcomes. In the traditional markets like Australia, we have to to link it directly to sales or to sales activity. It is a long route, and to track changes in perception is market research and all of those sorts of things. So with social, we have so much more at our disposal.
Okay, thank you. So let's try and involve the panel as a group in this. So Elaine comes from a standpoint of a company culture that believes in measurement and commits to it. Khali's just spoken about AVEs or other PR measures. So Fritz, I'm circling around you here and wondering what within American Express you either have or are perhaps thinking about introducing as a standard form of measuring, evaluating your communications performance.
So we're getting there a little bit. I think it's putting a greater focus on, again, using some of the tracking capabilities with digital media to really say what customers are doing. The question earlier about, can you link your PR activities with actual sales generation? We can, and we've done it in a couple places, thinking about like commercial clients. We've produced content that has been relevant to business customers, and which then filters into generating leads for our corporate payments business. Now that's good, but how good is that lead? What is the quality of that lead? And that's where we can generate leads, but can we do it in a scalable fashion? Can we do it in a way that's truly cost effective? Not yet. But I think over time, as we're refining our communications approach, then we're going to get a lot better at actually making it more demonstrable that we can drive scale in terms of driving greater business. This is, this came up earlier. What is when does communications slam into marketing? That's a little bit unclear right now. I firmly believe that PR and communications is a separate function that can do things certain things far more effectively than marketing can, the same way that marketing can do certain things far more effectively than communications can. So we're getting there, but it's still a transitional period of, okay, we've proven the concept a little bit. Maybe it's not exactly what we think it is, but over time, we'll refine our own processes.
I mean, you've worked for American Express from memory in the US, in Australia.
It'll be 10 years in 2 weeks.
Okay, and in Asia. So is there a uniform way within American Express, or is it very much region by, or continent by continent?
So no, I actually think Asia's at the forefront of this.
Okay.
I think other people are thinking about it, but just in terms of, because I'm so much better than my colleagues. I think we are definitely looking at it more. We're just looking at it more than in other places. Now, and that's a tough question for me to answer too, because the other half of my job is government affairs. So if you want to tell me how you can measure the effectiveness of government affairs, please come and let me know how to do that.
You've just thrown out an open tender opportunity.
Please. But no, I truly do think that in this region, you know, my teams, they're the ones working hardest on this stuff. And they're the ones doing the work, not me. Okay.
So I'm coming to Elaine. I know you went to global headquarters in Holland recently for a global comms meeting. So are you all working off the same page, so to speak, as far as measurement is concerned?
We are. Yes, we are, Barry. So what I showed earlier, the measurement system that we use, that is used by Royal Philips globally. So we have a team that works with our agency partner to come up with the criteria, and then the agency partner then puts all the monthly clippings that we get into an algorithm that helps us calculate whatever that you see on this scale that we get. Yeah. So we have a global report that is shared with key management of the company, and then we also get, each of us who take care of a specific region, get our specific regional report as well. So it all follows up, and the good thing about having a measurement system that is used by company-wide and globally, it allows us all to work in the same direction. And it's especially important when the company is trying to redefine itself and going through a business transformation, like I said, and trying to change perceptions, shift perceptions of the brand. And especially when in doubt, like let's say when you have a comms lead from one of your countries comes and asks you, how do I prioritize what's important? So that's when the measurement system comes in also.
Okay, thank you. And Khali, you mentioned certain countries within Asia Pacific that you rated to be sort of up there. Let me throw that back at you another way, a more general way. What excites you about Asia Pacific in terms of the measurement and insights potential, and also what frustrates you? So it's a bit of a double-edged question.
What excites me, and I spoke about AVEs and PR values, is that we know that that's can be solved through education and communication. Yeah. So I see, you know, while I've raised it as an issue and a challenge, I see that member companies, initiatives such as AMEC, have an enormous amount of opportunity to change the way that we do business. And I think a lot of our end clients recognise that they don't want to be using these metrics anymore, but they need that compelling argument internally. And I think that if we can work towards that, about empowering our clients to tell that story about powerful measurement that doesn't include a dollar value, I think that that's an enormous opportunity. We've seen that it does work. You know, 10 years ago in Australia, we had similar challenges that I think we've largely overcome now. So it's an enormous opportunity and excites me. The other thing that really gets me up out of bed every morning, Barry, is the scale and the excitement and the pace of innovation. And it's almost in the DNA of our teams and our analysts in most markets in Asia that, you know, the first way to do something is not to look at hard copy traditional press. It's to jump into a digital world and get rich data. So that really excites me, and I think that if we can, I guess, take the best of both markets and share that information, we'll be in a good position.
Sure. Yeah. Great. So I'm coming out to the audience now for questions. Are the microphone helpers ready, poised? So question, there's a red arm up at the back there. We'll switch the mic. Just hold on a moment.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Thanks for offering the mic to me. My name is Sarima. I am from an e-commerce company that's just been in Southeast Asia for 5 years, Lazada Group. And I head up the PR for the region. I have a question for each of the panelists. For Elaine, what is the percentage of investment you put on measurement against the total PR investment that you have? And my understanding is your measurement is very much focused on news coverage, be it across channels, online, print, or broadcast. Similar question with Fritz, but only because I think I'm deducing that your communications measurement is beyond news coverage. It covers social media and not an independent of syndicated articles. So I'm kind of assuming if you have a budget, it would be slightly more in terms of percentage. And then for Khali, it's putting yourself in the interest of the client. What would be a justifiable investment in measurement? And there's no question about believing that measurement in PR is important. I'm totally bought into that. But what is the threshold, or what is the justifiable cost that you would help or steer a client to put into measurement?
Okay, I think there were probably about 3 questions in there. I'm going to try to answer each of them, but probably collectively. And thank you for that question, because I think the whole thing with measurement is a subject that I think is still very widely discussed by all communications professionals. It is something that is constantly evolving and changing. And because we have such a complex measurement system in place that covers more than 1,500 media titles and across 16 regions for us globally, there is only a certain amount that we can measure. So first off, I want to clarify that we measure earned media only. So that can be digital and social media, as well as traditional print media. But the caveat is that we only measure earned media. So because right now our functions is in PR and communications, but we also do some work in paid media because we are the guardians of the key messages for the company. So in terms of investment, my counsel would be, it really depends on how much, what it is that you're trying to get out of the measurement system. So what is the objective of you measuring, and what kinds of conversations you want to have with your teams internally, with your management team, and then you determine the parameters of what you're trying to measure. You put in the different criteria for measurement, and then you decide on a figure. So I don't think there's a hard and fast rule as to how much money you want to spend. I think, of course, if we had the luxury to pump in even more funding into measurement, that's going to help us all in PR and communications a lot more. And there's always the opportunity to go further in depth into details, analyzing a piece of what you consider top quality coverage, and making sure that you are really hitting it on the nail with all your key messages there. So there is just so much that can be done. And I just want to say that I believe that for us all, it's a learning process along the way all the time, and we're constantly evaluating and seeing how we can do better.
Yeah, it is difficult to, so there's no sort of hard and fast rule. I would say there are, for us, it's between 5 and 10%. And that sounds like 10% is a lot, right? But that's going to be on a very big project, and that's also going to be something that measures brand health or brand sentiment. That's expensive to do, and that takes a long time, and you have to look at it over you have to look over a long time horizon. So it depends on what you're measuring, and I think, I'll talk about this a little bit later, but why are you measuring? I mean, that's an interesting question. I think right now, a lot of communications people are measuring for measurement's sake. They're just doing it because, oh, geez, I have to do this now, rather than saying, wait, was that actually effective? Or am I really curious in finding out this specific piece of information? So that cost will come down over time, and we'll get better at, on the business metrics, we'll get better at really honing in, okay, we know that we can drive this statistic or this metric. But on some of the larger, did your key messages get through? Are you, how are people perceiving your brand? Really for us, are people having longer term spending behavior? That takes more time. That takes more time and money to track, because our systems aren't set up to track people over the long term. So we have to invest a little bit into doing that. So 10% on the high end, but we do put quite a lot into it, but not in every market. So we're ahead in some markets in terms of measurement. In Australia, we're far ahead of where we are in, say, India. But it's around that.
I agree with the 5 to 10% rule, and those are percentages that I've heard global companies use. Not 10% in every market, as you said, Fritz, but definitely that has been a guideline that I've heard. And to echo these comments, it really is about value more than the actual the dollar amount of investment. If you're not getting the value out of that measurement, you need to question it and rejig. If you're not able to make confident business decisions based on it when you need to, then it's not providing that value. So I think it's not so much a question about percentage or a dollar amount, it's really about what you're getting out of it and the confidence that it's providing you.
Okay, thank you. Some great sound bites there. I hope the Twitterati in the room is active. Question at the front.
Well, yes. So Richard again, I wanted to pick up on Khali's point about advertising value equivalence and take this opportunity to inform the summit that at our board meeting yesterday, in further support of AMEC's drive for education and to help eradicate the metric and help you with that, we're going to be taking a much stronger position. In the same way Khali was talking about the framework helps to operationalize the Barcelona principles and show you how to put those principles into action. What we realize is just having a principle that says advertising value equivalents are not a valid metric in its own is not a strong enough thing. So an announcement will be going out later today about a whole new initiative that AMEC's taking and an educational resource center to help us to really win that battle once and for all. It's been raging for 20 years. When we launched the Barcelona Principles in 2010, our members reported about 80% of their clients there was a demand for AVEs. That number's down to just 18% now, but it's still too high, and we want it to go lower. Obviously, it varies on regions, and the region here we know is one of the ones that's still using it because it's more nascent in its place in measurement development. But an important new announcement will be coming from us later today.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
Can I just make a comment on that really quickly? If it is down to 18%, I still think that number is actually a little bit low. So I was just judging some PR awards last week, and 75% of the award entries that I saw used AVE in the traditional media thing. So I support you fully, but people are still throwing that up there as something that...
And one of the steps we will be taking, we've already done it with our own AMEC awards, Fritz, will be encouraging awards organizers around the world to zero score entries that only use AVEs as a form of measurement. Look, we're all commercial. We realize it will take time, and some clients are emphatically insistent on AVEs, but not as the primary way of measuring. That's our key point. Don't talk without a mic, please. It's a big room.
And just to Fritz's point about the 75% in the award entries that you were judging, all UK PR awards now, if you put an AV full stop into the into the submission, you get disqualified.
That's an
and
excellent idea.
That's from the PRCA,
It
the
saved me a lot of
CIPR,
time.
all of them. So yeah, and within, as Barry says, we'll be working to make that happen more globally as well.
But it's great feedback. It's a great reminder.
Well, it's a simple change, though.
There are
just
bumps
zero
in the road
spread.
ahead, but we can get over those.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm looking for the next question. Is Andy West, I think it is, from Hotwire.
Thanks, Barry. It's a question to the panel. First of all, I've got a ton of things I'd love to ask you all. Very disappointed to hear that little story a moment ago, Fritz, about the AVEs. That makes me hang my head in shame. Name names, which were the awards. But I'm kind of curious as to what sort of conversations you're having with your sales and marketing leadership around the measurement of the PR outcomes, and whether or not you're starting to hear any conversations around linkage to sales and marketing technologies, looking for the attribution that PR, or attribution to PR through the, to sales or to brand impact, looking for linkage with your PR outcomes to technologies like Marketo or HubSpot or Eloqua. Are you being asked to link the two at all? Is that anything that your sales and marketing leadership are inquiring about at this time?
Yes.
Great.
That is changing. I think what I talked about earlier about sort of the internal PR and sort of how you manage that, and it's getting your marketing people used to having that conversation with you, and we work quite closely with all of our marketing departments to say, okay, we think we can measure this, or we think we can change that. What do you think? And we're refining that. But yes, we are working closely with them, and I think we're getting them slowly over the line in terms of, yes, this is great, do more of this, or no, maybe you should do less of that.
We find appetite, a lot of appetite in Asia for those sorts of things, and we're having a lot more conversations in areas like Singapore and China and Hong Kong than we would have in Australia. In Australia and New Zealand, we're probably leading that discussion and perhaps leading our clients to say, look, what can we do? I think it's also a very key thing is who we're talking to with that client. Are we talking to marketing, or are we talking to a traditional PR team? And how integrated are those teams working? Are they in silos that don't speak to each other, or are they actually working in integrated ways? So that really influences the types of conversations and the types of measurement that we can provide. How those businesses are running internally, the structure actually matters.
Thank you, Andy. Another arm up over here. Have you got a mic?
Yes.
Yes, good.
Yes. The Bill Shen from DNS China. Just now, for the Philips measurement program, the one voice connections, you include the tone, the quantities, such as Ashworth's categories. In the traditional media's measurement, you even include the position at the first page or second page. But the challenge situation is that now we are using more and more news app. Some news app is actually automatically recommended to the first page to some target audience. This kind of articles maybe is not delivered to the mass audience, but delivered to some accurate target audience. So this is very important. But how can you, for your system, any consideration of the news values of this kind of the articles is automatically recommended to the target audience? This is some new challenge. Do you have any consideration? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. For us, we actually, the different comms leads across the world determine what we want to include in that media title list that we then provide to the global team and to our agency partners for the measurement. So we actually spend quite a bit of time in putting together that top tier media list, and we actually have a way to tier our target media such that it's A, B, and C. And actually in ASEAN Pacific, the region that I work in, if you consider all three different tiers of media, we have close to 1,800 media titles in there. And then out of that, then we determine which are the key ones that we want to track. And so, yes, we do take into consideration the different media consumption habits that people have today. As an example, what we put into tier 1 might not necessarily be, say, a national newspaper like the Australian, for instance, because we just got to be honest with ourselves. What are the kinds of news that make it into what we consider top tier media like the Australian, and how often can you actually make it into there, right? So there is a certain qualitative, there's actually a lot of analysis and qualitative considerations that go into what we put in the media list that we would measure. So all these things are being considered, and is also constantly evolving and changing as the media landscape changes. So in fact, I just told my team that I think we need to evaluate that list on a quarterly basis, looking at how the industry changes and looking at how the media landscape itself changes as well. As you guys know, there's a lot of consolidation going on in the media industry today. So yeah, those were things I didn't cover earlier, but so thank you for your question.
Yeah, you've got greater tools now to be able to do this with a great degree of efficacy. So this is, maybe I'm being a little bit hyperbolic, but I have completely deprioritized what you would traditionally think is tier 1 media. Right. You know, what is worth more to me? A story on A5 of the Wall Street Journal where we're mentioned once, and maybe a bunch of eyes have seen it, but have they attributed to us? Or is it a social media post that I know 500 people who are my target customer, that I know that they've seen it? Maybe they've done something with it, maybe they've shared it, maybe they've liked it, whatever. What's more valuable to me? There are times when the Wall Street Journal is absolutely going to be, yes, we want that. But again, it depends on the purpose of your PR. And I think what is tier 1, you know, what is the most appropriate media for you now is really changing. Me personally, I scoff a little bit at, you know, sort of thought leadership pieces and surveys and things like that. That's cheap and dirty PR, and it works. It really does. but is it the right thing for us, or from a measurement standpoint, can I really show that that's going to drive my business, or that because somebody read this article, 2 weeks later they've signed up for a credit card? That's hard, but I can do that with Facebook. Absolutely. I can tell exactly what you've done, which is kind of creepy, but.
Any final comment? Okay. So, Colin Wheeler, I'll take a quick one. Colin?
So I originally started out working on the marketing side, and I've come into comms subsequently to sort of about 10 years working with people who were talking about brand tracking, brand perception, advertising impact. And bearing in mind the very interesting subtleties of comms people who are saying, well, I want some sort of financial metric, some sort of benchmark of business impact that we're having for our company. And that sort of distinction between somewhere like Australia that is a bit more traditional, like some of our Western European markets. Do you feel the sophistication of asking for that business impact is changing the dynamic between comms and marketing, and actually putting comms teams who are doing that and coming from that, as that's how our business operates, having a much stronger role? The reason I'm asking is Fritz's point about AVEs in award submissions. I absolutely agree. I've seen it myself when I'm judging. But it's quite compelling. It's quite easy. It's quite seductive. And that's the masquerade point that Khali made. I just think because marketing for so long have been able to drive conversations around efficacy about financial return, that's driven comms down the agenda and down priorities.
It's certainly a reason why, you know, in summits gone by, we've talked about the lack of PR's presence at the C-suite table that need to be at the table. And I think that when you take in vanity metrics and a masquerade of ROI, you're not actually putting the best foot forward. And I think that has exactly what you've said. That's sort of limited PR and comms when they've taken that to the C-suite, definitely. It varies a lot between marketing and comms. I think that we still, in Australia, definitely, we still have a lot of division between comms and marketing teams. And we hope that the integration that we can see in the US and the UK actually develops more in this region, because I think it can only help both sides, as Fritz mentioned.
Yeah, I think, so a thought has occurred to me. I wonder if marketing people are sort of waging the secret war against comms people. Because, and this is a sample size of like 1 or 2, but I know in China there have been a couple programs that we've done with partners where the partners marketing team have been the one that asked for the AVE. They said, no, we want to measure that because we want to show it. I wonder if they're sort of fighting some sort of secret dirty war.
Any final comment from you?
Actually, I have come across certain instances when the marketing team actually wanted us to provide AVE because it allows them to complete their ROI reports about why they're investing. And then they go, yeah, I pay $100,000 for a piece of ad, and then I only pay $10,000 for PR. And then when you're able to demonstrate to them that $10,000 that they spend on PR is getting them so much more in terms of AVE, they're really excited, and they keep coming back to you. So there are times when you just have to provide certain kinds of metrics, depending on who your stakeholders are. But I have to say that it is probably only more in the B2C area that would still demand or still ask for AVE.
So you've already heard a statement from the AMEC chairman. This is the global summit that's going to very firmly say no to AVEs. This is our leadership position, irrespective of how seductive they may be. So Fritz, Quinn, Khali, Sakkas, Elaine, thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.